Welcome to the debate as we approach what I think is a pretty critical energetic turning point of 2026, the year of the fire horse. Interest is really surging in how we can align our personal environments, our homes, our offices, to capture this incredible momentum. It's really about anticipating and optimizing for the coming cosmic currents.
And that optimization is, I think, more critical than ever. Because the 2026 energetic blueprint is, well, it's volatile. We have a powerful double dose of the fire element, which generates speed, resourcefulness, and drive. But structurally, the Pa Chi chart for the year shows a glaring, a complete absence of the water element.
And water, in Chinese metaphysics, that governs fluidity and financial wealth. So you have a year driven by fiery speed, but it's lacking that financial foundation.
Exactly. That structural imbalance means strategic adjustment isn't a luxury, it's a vital necessity. And so it forces us to ask, is successful environmental harmonization for the 2026 home energy reset primarily achieved through the rigorous, directional, and time-based calculations of classical Feng Shui? This school, it relies on complex mathematical formulas and very precise elemental cures.
Or is the most effective path the more accessible, intention-driven, and psychological approach of westernized feng shui? I'm going to contend that this simplified method, which harmonizes with modern environmental psychology, actually offers the greatest practical benefit to the widest audience.
And I'm going to insist that only the directional precision and the specific, calculated elemental cures of the classical compass school, the Lupan, can reliably manage the volatile energy, address those elemental gaps, and safely navigate the directional afflictions we're facing in 2026.
I start from the premise that the external environment is really just a manifestation of the internal state. The core maxim of my approach is, as without, so within. If we look at the growing body of environmental psychology research, it affirms that conquering clutter and ensuring free flow of qi, what we now understand as reducing sha qi, or, sensory overload, it immediately reduces stress and improves cognitive function.
Okay, but those are excellent basic steps, I'll grant you. But they are form school fundamentals, not sophisticated energy management.
They're the foundation upon which intention is built. The efficacy of this system is directly tied to the client's belief and intention. When someone uses the accessible westernized Bagua map, where the South Fame area always aligns with the front door, they're in essence using it as an emotional and spiritual acupuncture reference table for their space. So placing a simple cure, like a rose quartz heart in the love gua, isn't really about elemental balance. It's a powerful ritual that focuses mental energy, and this focused attention, reinforced daily, yields measurable psychological and relational results over time.
I'm coming from a different angle. That intentional energy, it has to have a physically accurate target. While belief is powerful, of course it is, relying solely on intention without calculated placement risks turning this whole sophisticated metaphysical system into, frankly, a kind of cargo cult science. We are dealing with objective, universal magnetic forces here. Classical Feng Shui demands preciseness because the annual energy shifts are governed by the solar calendar, starting consistently around February 4th or 5th, which dictates the exact movement of the flying stars. Your reliance on the lunar cycle for timing, while it's excellent for personal astrology, it's just misaligned with the actual annual shift that defines the house's energy for the fire horse here.
That's a critical distinction, I agree. But let's really delve into the necessity of that level of precision. You challenge the Western Bagua, which is based on the front door, stating that applying the wrong map risks inadvertently bringing harm because external qi follows magnetic directions.
Absolutely. The energy of the planet flows in a natural directional pattern. The Lopan isn't merely a compass, it is a highly sophisticated multi-ranged device that measures the magnetic direction of the front door against the Earth's branches and heavenly stems. This gives us precise 15-degree segments, the pie chart method, that define where the Bagua sits. If a client attempts to map their home using the square grid overlay, the front door method, they may inadvertently be placing an enhancer into an adjacent 45-degree sector that is afflicted by a hostile flying star. This can genuinely bring more harm than good by amplifying negative qi.
I hear the necessity of that rigor, I do. Yet my concern remains the accessibility of that complex measurement for the average person, especially the massive number of people who live in modern apartments or, rented spaces where structural modifications or complex compass readings are, well, they're just impractical. For them, precision is secondary to establishing clear energy boundaries that neutralize harmful energy, regardless of its precise magnetic origin.
And how is that achieved without precision?
By prioritizing what we know works for everyone, renter-friendly strategies that focus on Sha key reduction and the command position principle. For the home office, which is so critical for tapping into 2026's career momentum, we focus on universal design, using lighting or rugs to visually separate work and personal energy, avoiding desks facing walls or positioned with your back to the door. These practices are low-budget, highly effective, and they address the universal physical stress, the Sha key, that inhibits productivity far more than an invisible, misaligned star. This gives the occupant immediate agency over their space, which I think is often the precursor to achieving larger, calculable success.
That agency is valuable, sure. But it is limited when you're dealing with the objective force of the elements. Managing the dramatic elemental imbalance of 2026, the excessive fire and the missing water, that requires more than good sightlines. We have to use the 5-element cycles to bridge that gap.
I'm not totally convinced by that line of reasoning because it treats the elements purely as external forces. That ignores their internal, psychological resonance and how they relate to the house's underlying energetic nature.
But the house has an underlying nature that must be respected first. General enhancements are insufficient if they clash with the house's soul, or what we call heaven's DNA. This energy matrix is derived from the Flying Star School calculation, taken at the exact time of the house's construction completion. For true command, a classical practitioner must match the resident's personal energy, their Ming Gua, to the house's foundational chart. So if a person whose Ming Gua element is wood tries to enhance a fire sector, they feed the fire, which, okay, that might be fine, but if their house's heaven's DNA already shows excessive fire and insufficient water, that generalized enhancement could exacerbate the foundational imbalance, leading to burnout and financial depletion.
That's compelling. So you are suggesting that if the house has a pre-existing illness, we have to treat that first before applying the annual cures.
Exactly. And the 2026 annual illness is the lack of water, the financial element. This is why generalized clutter clearing just isn't sufficient. One must strategically introduce water element symbols or colors, and not just blue, but actual representations like moving water features or mirrored surfaces into key areas to compensate for that elemental void and foster consistent financial opportunity.
Okay, that's a powerful argument for the objective necessity of water, but I find that elemental conflict often manifests first as an internal state, which can be managed with intention. For instance, you mentioned that the number 8 wealth star is in the East a wood sector in 2026. This means the earth element of star 8 is naturally weakened by the wood of the sector.
Yes, you can think of it like trying to build a stable foundation, which is earth, in a rapidly growing energetic forest, which is wood. The wood's aggressive growth will just continually break up the earth's foundation. So to tap this wealth potential, we have to use sizable earth element enhancers, crystals, large stone ornaments, to stabilize that foundation against the wood's influence. Simple decorative choices just won't work. This requires calculating the appropriate size and material.
That calculation might be necessary for large-scale enhancements, but I recall a case where a client's chronic mental chaos and stagnation was traced back to their knowledge gua, which is associated with the mind being activated. Astrologically, this area was linked to chaotic Uranus in their natal chart.
A fascinating link, but how did they solve the Feng Shui issue?
The solution wasn't a complex elemental calculation using crystals or stones. It was simply to make the knowledge gua, that specific corner of their home, a dedicated, no-clutter zone for meditation and mental clarity. By fixing the internal mind issue through focused, intentional attention on the corresponding gua,
the external chaos resolved. The psychological activation of the Bagua, using it as a map for consciousness, was the fastest path to stability. It proved that intentional, targeted focus can often supersede the need for complex elemental countercures.
And while that is a valid example of psychological success, I just don't buy that emotional alignment supersedes directional necessity when you're dealing with truly hostile annual energies. Let's look at the safety requirements of 2026. We must navigate the annual afflictions, specific dangerous sectors that require absolute caution.
My worry, though, is that focusing too heavily on these afflictions, like the number 3 hostile star in the West, can drive people toward fear-based purchasing of commercial amulets rather than proactive, conscious, spatial awareness.
The caution is based on quantifiable risk. The North Sector is afflicted by the 3 killings, a triad of misfortune that threatens loss of wealth, reputation, or a loved one. Ignoring this is not just bad luck, it's an invitation for an unnecessary crisis. If your main entrance, or even worse, a child's bedroom, is in the north, avoiding renovation, digging, or loud banging in that sector throughout 2026 is a non-negotiable safety measure based on directional time factors. Simple intention cannot shield a house from the objective movement of these annual forces.
Okay, I concede that caution is vital when dealing with structural disturbance. But let's look at the counterpoint, the center of the home.
The center is powerfully enhanced in 2026. The Victory Star 1, which represents triumph and future prosperity, flies into the center. And what's more, because we are now fully in Period 9, the Star 1 combines with the Period 9 energy to form a sum of 10.
And what exactly does that sum of 10 luck mean for the average person?
Is phenomenal. 10 signifies completion luck. It means long-stalled projects, whether it's finishing a major renovation, launching a delayed career objective, or resolving a lingering debt, can finally come to fruition. And since the center influences every other gua, this completion energy spreads to the whole house. To maximize this, we need precise placement of powerful enhancers, like a perfect 10 amulet or a trinity of horses, right in the geometric center of the house to magnify this energy. This is calculated, strategic enhancement for universal benefit.
That's a compelling case for a universal win, but I'd suggest that personal ritual can activate that success regardless of directional luck or commercial products. We can activate the same completion energy through intentional clearing. I've seen this happen when practitioners focus on healing the past during the new moon in their 4th house, which corresponds to the family gua. One research participant felt this intense, overwhelming urge to throw out boxes of items tied to the memory of their parents' bankruptcy.
An emotional release, certainly.
It was more than that. It was a symbolic act of unhindering their prosperity. By intentionally targeting and removing the physical and emotional baggage tied to financial stagnation, they achieved a profound, lasting resolution that superseded the need for a store-bought amulet. It addresses the root of the stagnation, achieving that completion that the sum of 10 promises, but through conscious transformation rather than calculation.
I come at it from a different way. That ritual succeeded because the intention was sound and it was targeted at a personal blockage. When we talk about maximizing the objective universal opportunities of a volatile year like 2026, we are talking about applying universal principles, like leveraging the Victory Star in the center to benefit the entire household's trajectory in a measurable, strategic way. Personal transformation is key, absolutely, but the rigor of the compass and the calculated use of the 5 elements ensure that the structural foundation of the house itself is supporting, not sabotaging, that intent.
I still contend that the fundamental value of Feng Shui lies in the ability to create alignment between internal thought and external environment. Respectful attention to your immediate surroundings, paired with clear, focused intention and basic space-clearing principles, offers powerful, low-barrier psychological benefits and real-world results that are universally accessible. For the renter or the beginner, this path offers agency, and it offers it immediately.
And I insist that while intention is necessary, it is not sufficient. In a year of dramatic elemental shifts like 2026, ignoring the precise directional influences, the annual movement of the flying stars, and the elemental requirements, particularly the critical gap left by the missing water, risks allowing powerful, unseen qi to remain unbalanced. The results of the practice must be grounded in strategic calculation and time-tested principles, not just intuitive feeling.
Ultimately, we both agree that Feng Shui is a structured, intentional methodology for improving the flow of life force energy, the qi.
Indeed, the fundamental disagreement is what constitutes the most reliable tool to shape that energy and maximize opportunity in a year as intense as the fire horse. The objective, calculated rigor of the Luopan and the flying stars, or the subjective, psychological power of personal ritual and focused intention. The true answer likely involves elements of both, but the listener must decide which approach offers the steadiest footing for riding the intense, fast-moving current of 2026.